Good morning. It's a nice day for a little run. We got Titan here. I just want to make a little comment. It's been a while. Often when I'm out running, the random car that passes by, or truck, I'll give a little wave and they wave back. It's kind of the country thing to do, as most people know. Some people don't wave back, and sometimes I don't wave back. Maybe I'm just distracted or whatever, but it just made me think of, being part of a community and a society. These days, people tend to have, there's a lot of things in the news and about just kind of freedoms and rights, and, I can't help but think about, waving to your neighbor. And what has happened now, people feel threatened. Kind of hear about it in the news, people being told on, for having a gathering in their house or doing something. They kind of feel like they're being watched. And they don't like it, with good reason. But about 8 years ago, I moved back to Canada from overseas, and I noticed a lot of differences. One of the examples would be signaling. In Edmonton, people seem to have just forgot to signal. And I was like, what? How do people, it never used to be like this. How do people just forget? But I think just kind of the last while, many years, people have really focused in on just the self and kind of what are my needs, what are my wants, my family, my kids. And it kind of tends to be the main focus. It's always kind of been that way. And in a society where you kind of are told that you can follow your dreams and, work hard, when that kind of falls apart, when you talk about the crash, in 2008, and a time like this when you can't do anything you want for the betterment of the society. You are kind of contained to within your rights and freedoms to do things that are for the betterment of the people around you. And I guess my point is, we're going to have to start learning how to care for our neighbor. If you are worried that your neighbor is going to tell on you for something, I don't really think it's your neighbor's problem. I think it's probably, you got to look at yourself and say, what am I doing? Am I kind of following the recommendations and restrictions during this time to help out my community? Or am I just sloughing it off and just doing what I want and calling it freedom or whatever you want to call it? But the point is, if you do that, you are actively choosing not to be a part of your society, of your community, which is a very dangerous thing to think about when you go out to protest something or just be outraged or to not wear a mask and make a fit. Because when you're done with that, you go home to your house with electricity and heat and your TV and all the luxuries that you have. And for a lot of people in Canada, even their jobs, money coming in during this crisis, and not really knowing what the future holds, but being thankful and understanding that as much as you may not like the government's decisions, there are some benefits to it. For myself, particularly, I'm thankful that, I still have a job. But I guess my point is, we're a part of society. If you want to live in a box outside of town and then come into town and protest or whatever, maybe that has more, maybe you could do that. Maybe that's more credible But if you are shopping, getting groceries, working, taking a taxi, on the bus, driving your car on roads, you're part of the system. And the system might be broke. And we might not know how to handle this crisis. But it has to be some sense of unity. So if you don't like the government, and if you don't like what they're doing, I mean, you can vote next time for a different government. But if you just choose to not follow government, that's kind of like anarchy. I've lived through a lot of governments I haven't liked. I don't like the current Alberta government. But, you gotta live with it. You can't, there's no pouting, what are we teaching our kids to run around? All this stuff that everyone's doing, it's on video. So people are going to look up, protesting, barbecue joints being closed in Toronto. They can look up that footage forever. So I don't know. A little bit too political on this post, maybe. But anyways, try to get along. If you see your neighbor in the backyard, instead of seeing what they're doing, questioning it, maybe just wave to them. Maybe say, how's it going, kind of thing. Anyways, my 2 cents for today. One more note as I was thinking about running back. I read a runner's take on some of this stuff about being at home, restrictions, masks, all that stuff. In all honesty, we've all been conditioned to look after ourselves first. And many of us, because it's natural, tend to only look after ourselves or our loved ones. So it's understandable that we see this kind of clash. What can you do? Once they announced that there was going to be a vaccine, it seemed like a lot of people said it's over. But that takes time. So what I read was a good way to look at this is as a marathon. When I run a marathon, I run it very slowly. But later on in the marathon, it gets so hard to run. And instead of saying, I've got 10 miles left or 10 kilometers or whatever, I'll say, just get to the next kilometer, just get to the next mile, get to the next block. So my encouragement is to not look at the finish line in this, because you're probably going to be disappointed. But instead say to yourself, can I make it to tomorrow? Can I make it to this weekend? Can I make it to the grocery store and back? And hopefully you can say yes to those things and just focus on it one task at a time, one day at a time. And be sure to check in on people that might not have a crew around to spend time with. But yeah, let's take this one day at a time. Alberta, let's be better. And just yeah, you know what to do.